I've been taking a look at myself because I've been wanting to reevaluate, my life and my ability to communicate with people, and I'm noticing that I'm having some difficulty. And instead of blaming everybody else, I think I'll look at myself. You know how they say, if everybody's telling you the same thing, instead of blaming everybody else, look at yourself. So the reason I'm having these conversations is so that I can hear myself, and so that I can hopefully give other people, I guess, a different way to look at my communication style. This is an effort to just talk and to talk to people and share perspectives about different encounters that I have. For instance, you heard the conversation I had with the other person, and how I think the reason, maybe she changed her mind in the end had to do with maybe she was weak-minded. That's what I heard. I got some feedback from people, and they said, oh, she's a weak-minded girl. She let you control her. She just was weak. And she just let you. And then another person said, well, she just got tired of going back and forth with you and just gave in. I don't believe she really.
That's the vibe I got.
Oh, that's the vibe you got too?
Yeah, because I just felt like you kept grilling her, and to the point she was like, all right, yeah, I see it now.
Okay, when you say grill, what do you mean?
She had a different opinion or thought than you, and every time she said it, you were like, no, it's this. Am I right? Kinda. It's like you kept saying, you would say something. Am I right? It was like you're trying to, you're like trying to make her agree with you. If that makes sense. Does that make sense to me?
Of course, it makes sense. So when you say,
so it was like this. Every time like she mentioned something different from what you would answer, it was like you would cut her off or like, wait a minute. Explain that. It was like you were just grilling her to the point where, it gets old pretty quickly for some people.
Well, those are the kind of people that I would rather not talk to. And those aren't the kind of people that I want to try to interview, because if someone can easily be influenced, then that's their problem. It's not mine. And
I got you.
I feel that what I did was, when I was interrupting her, I was keeping the conversation from going down a path that was irrelevant. All the times that I interrupted her, did you notice? Because I'm going to get into something that I had another conversation with someone. Did you notice when I interrupted her that she was going off target, off the conversation?
Yeah, I definitely saw it a couple times, yeah. Or heard it.
Yeah, well, most of the time.
I do understand where you're coming from with that. It's just, I don't know. Just different approach.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is most of the time I interrupted her, it was because she was going down a path that was not a part of the focal point.
I got you.
Do you notice that?
Mm-hmm.
So do you still feel like I was grilling her if I was trying to keep the conversation focused?
Yeah.
How? So then how was I supposed to keep the conversation focused if I didn't interrupt her? What if I just let her talk? Because I was asking her specific things, and instead of her answering what I was asking, she was saying things that were irrelevant. What should I do to keep a conversation in control? Because I got accused of controlling a conversation too. So if you use the term grilling, that has to me a negative connotation. So I want to ask you, what is it that I could have or should have done that would have kept the conversation? Because if you notice when she spoke, and she was out of, she was off the focus, that's when I interrupted her most. You do notice that or no? Yeah,
I got you. And I guess it makes sense when you say that, and it's easy to say that, man. I can't give you a finite answer at the moment, but I don't know. When you see other interviews or other like news things, I don't know. It's just sometimes when people go off subject, they don't grill them right there in the spot. They let them hear what they say, and they say, well, that's a little off the subject, and then you go, I don't know. It's just like, it's plus, I guess it seemed really much like grilling could have happened so many times in a short period of time that I don't know. I I can't. I guess I would have to listen to it again to kind of, if I really want to evaluate it and give you a fine example of how not to do that or another way to do it. But that was just the vibe I was getting. I mean, just to give you a short summary of it.
I get it. I'm okay with stopping something on the point. I don't want to drag out a conversation just to be nice. I don't want to be mean to someone, but I don't want to let a person take a line and go far away from my focal point just so that I don't sound mean. Each time I
guess one thing you probably could have done, especially towards the end, was instead of she still kind of had a different point than you, even after this long conversation, and you could stop her there and explain why. Just be like, okay, well, clearly we think differently. You say that because of that, and maybe you say that and haven't really given me a clear example that I accept yet, and this is how I feel. Instead of saying, well, do you agree? I don't know. It was like you were, you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't know what you're saying.
It seemed like I was saying, it sounded like you really want her to have your same opinion.
We need to investigate if it sounded like that or if that's what I was trying to do. And the truth in the matter is, I don't want to focus on what something sounds like or what it feels like. I really want to focus on what it is. So if I hear you say it sounded like I wanted her to have my point of view, then you can ask me, did I want her to have my point of view? You want to ask me that?
Did you want her to have your point of view?
The answer to that question is absolutely not. What I did
when you cut her off after she gave you an answer and wanted her to explain why, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here because I don't remember the exact details, so I guess I don't have a logical case right here.
It's okay. I do.
Really factual there.
But I do. Anything that you're not sure about, I was there. I heard it several times. I know. So anything that you either accuse me of or mention, I will be able to defend with the proof. So anything that and what I'm trying to stay on is what's factual, what's realistic, and what's truth, and based on the conversation, not what you feel, not what you think. Because if you, I
can't really give you an exact answer with this conversation because everything I'm going based off is what I remember feeling in the conversation. I can't give you details at the moment.
Well, see, that's why I wanted you to listen to it. And that's why I have problems, because most people go on their feelings, and everything that you accuse me of, even from the word of grilling, I don't think I grilled her. I think I kept the conversation focused, and I think I kept it relevant. I was talking about the difference between discrimination and the difference between preference and the definition of those words. And the principle, I said to her that this is a principle-based conversation, not a feeling-based, not a think, and not what everyone is accustomed to. I was strictly talking on principles. And I think people should be able to look at principles in addition to their feelings. I'm not saying take your feelings and put them to the side, but don't let your feelings be the controlling factor when you're making decisions and you're having conversations and you're trying to get to the bottom of something, because it's never going to be on the same page, because feelings change. Everybody's feelings are different, but principles remain the same. And if you're having a principle-based conversation and you're trying to get to the bottom of something, the principles will always outweigh the difference in the feelings. So if I can put my feelings aside or my beliefs aside or what I want aside and go with what is a true, reasonable, or realistic or reasonable expectation based on the law of the land. I know that everybody needs water and food and clothing. That's a no-brainer. Well, we all need certain other things that are principle based, even to have a conversation. And if it's nothing but listening to the facts. When I interrupted her, she was telling me what she thinks and what she feels. Every time she started down that path, I would stop her and say, but these are the facts that I want you to see. If you go on your principle, if you go on how you feel, that's why I interrupted her. So I'm asking you, if when I interrupted her, did you notice that I was interrupting her because she was going down that feeling or belief or thought path, as opposed to looking at what was very relevant? There is a definition of discrimination. There's a definition of preference. And I wanted to look at what I was explaining to her based on the definition and the principles of those two, not how she felt. Because the truth in the matter is, I felt the same way. I had a choice.
I got you.
So
I got you.
Well,
yeah.
I'm not trying to I'm not trying to change your mind, but you made an opening statement that said I was grilling her and that I was trying to get her to think my way.
Okay, so when I say grilling, I would say this is an example of that. So how you're going right now, I completely agree with you, and we kind of think alike in that standard. But you see how you're really long-winded on this point, and when people hear that, it's like they're sitting down getting lectured instead of having a discussion. Like I hear your point, but you need to summarize this in a short manner because we're all grown-ups, and a lot of people don't really like being lectured. I guess there's I don't want to say a sense of, what's the word, not entitlement or something, but we don't want to be talked to as a child. So I mean, you see, I'm listening to you right now, but I feel like I'm getting lectured, and like you said, feeling and all that stuff. But I'm just telling you that's how it is and I'm telling you as looking out, as when you're talking about a podcast or a video for the average listener, this is what we all hear. So I mean, for my opinion, and just to help you out, just say your point and stick to it without giving a lecture on why too much. Because I mean, all this you were just saying like a few minutes ago, you could have said this in less than a minute. You just kept going, and I'm like, I get the idea, and I'm just sitting here listening out of respect, and I understand. But I as the average person that may not have the patience, and especially when we have two separate opinions and we start getting a little annoyed at each other, this kind of gets pretty old pretty quickly, and I can see when people's patience run down or gets pretty thin.
Okay. Well, those are not the people that I want to talk to that have short patience. Because guess what? It took me time. I have to sit and explain it. I think that just like you think I should have shortened it, I think you should have understood it the first time around, because you did just say maybe it's not grilling. But you feel like it's a lecture.
One thing, when you lead especially when we have a lot of experience leading people, there's a lot of people that doesn't do things that you think they should. So you need to learn how to work with those people. A lot of people, and I'm telling you, 90% of people aren't going to do the things that you think they should. And yeah, it's good to stick to your principles, but also be flexible with that and constantly remind them. And don't. You got to be a little flexible with that. Everybody doesn't have the same patience as you, and when you're running a show or when you're doing something, that's just something to be mindful of. Yeah, you can stick to your blueprint and do what you're saying you're doing, and I mean, I completely understand and respect that. But if you would probably get the same feedback and response from people, and if you're saying you're looking for those specific clients, you're gonna find like just about as many you can count on your hand. You're not gonna find that many because a lot of people are like that, especially in our age group or older.
So then, what should I do?
Exactly what I'm saying. I mean, just either be flexible a little bit and just narrow down your conversation, be considerate of people's patience. And I mean, I understand this is a principle-based conversation in general, but still be mindful that people are going to let their feelings get in the way, because I mean, we are people that have feelings, and people don't think that way.
Okay, so then,
and I agree with you. Get out the way, and just constantly remind them. All right, you're starting to get into your feelings. Just let's stay on the road. That's all you have to say. Don't start lecturing them right there on the spot. Just a constant reminder. Don't, every time it happens, you don't need to start lecturing them. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, I want to find out where I can draw my line, and I want to ride as close to the line as I can, because
actually, the more examples we have and the more times I listen to you, I can draw more pictures for you, and kind of I'll listen and write it down for you.
Okay.
I just need more examples. Just one conversation. I probably need to listen to the thing again, the first one again.
Okay. So now, before I can even get into the conversation, I'm going to be mindful of our time too. Before I can get into the conversation, you started out by saying I was grilling her. Was I grilling her?
Yes, yes. You don't want to say, I keep saying that's how I felt, because that's how I felt, because I can't give you an example. So I just told you I'm paraphrasing based on what I remember. And my definition of grilling is, like I said, you're being really long-winded in your explanation of why they're doing something wrong.
Okay, so then I was just long-winded. I wasn't grilling her.
You see, this is what I'm talking about. This is the, it's like you're trying to change my mind or my opinion.
I'm not trying to change anything. I'm trying to understand. And if you say
I told you my definition of grilling, so clearly you don't agree with my definition, or you do agree.
Okay, I missed it.
I said my definition of grilling is being long-winded and explaining what she did was wrong. So yes, you were grilling her, in my opinion.
Okay, so then in order to not grill her, to make her feel better, I could have just said it in a shorter way. Not a different way, just a shorter way.
Shorter.
Just
definitely.
shorter. Okay, so I could have said the same thing, just shorter.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take that under advisement. I think that'll be a little bit more cut and dry. But I think that's where I'm going to eventually get anyway, which I think is going to be harder for people to understand, because if I'm really cut and dry and I don't take the long route, then I think it could sound, and I'm trying not to get into sounds and feelings, but I think if I do what you just said, say the same thing shorter without explaining, then I'm probably can just expect it to get a little worse before it get better. But I'll take that under advisement. And
yeah, I've been taking that advice. I'm not telling you to apply it strictly. I mean, it's just one of my interests, and that's why I also mentioned maybe at the beginning of your talk, you would put a disclaimer out that, hey, this is your policy, this is your philosophy or whatever. I'm a principle based this, I do that. So if I feel like you're answering your feelings on feelings, I'm gonna cut you short, and that's why. So later in the show, when you're like, hey, you're getting in your feelings, I mean, there you go.
Okay.
Focus on the subject, not your feelings. Boom. Okay. Let's continue.
I'll keep that in mind, and I like that idea. It saved a lot of time. Okay, now I had a conversation with someone, and the conversation kind of got a little out of hand because we were talking about, just like you and I are talking, and they had their perception, and they said similar to what you said. They felt like I was long-winded, and then they also said that I was controlling the conversation. And I asked a couple of questions, and I want to get your perspective of what I said to them. So I want to ask you, I'm going to try to be as short as I can. When you control a conversation, I want to ask you yes or no. And if you can answer yes or no, if you can't, because I get in trouble with yes or no's too.
Yeah, the rest, that'd be a tough one too. But I got you.
We'll get around. Well, if you don't want to answer, if you can answer yes or no first and then give me an explanation, I'm okay with that. But I prefer a yes or no for this question.
All right.
Is there a difference between controlling a person and controlling a conversation? Yes or no?
Yes.
There is a clear difference between controlling a conversation and controlling a person.
Yes.
Okay. Well, when a person told me that I was controlling the conversation, I first wanted to deny that. But then instead of denying that, I had to try it on. I said, well, maybe I was controlling the conversation. So I specifically asked, well, what's wrong with controlling a conversation? Because I was guilty of it, because I really was controlling the conversation. So I asked, what's wrong with controlling the conversation? And the person said, well, that means you don't give the person the opportunity to freely speak. You're controlling the conversation. So, and then that's when I would have said, well, then am I controlling the conversation or am I controlling them? But I didn't get around to that because they didn't have a difference for controlling the conversation. Instead of telling me yes or no, they specifically said, well, they kind of go hand in hand, because if you're controlling the conversation and you're cutting the person off, you're controlling them too. And I could see her.
Yeah, technically, you can't look that way, but I mean,
well,
if I'm giving a yes or no question, I mean,
if I'm controlling the conversation, I'm not controlling what a person says. I may be controlling how long they say it or for how much detail they go off. So I was guilty of controlling the conversation, but I think what she was describing is that I was controlling the person and I was being manipulative. And let me just ask you this question. In that other conversation you heard, did you think I was being manipulative? Yes or no? Whoa.
And that's pretty, yes or no is pretty cut and dry, and that sounds pretty tough. And I'm going to tell you why. And this was, and what you did with me was kind of an example. When I said I was grilling her, you asked, so am I, you kept coming at me, so I'm not grilling her. Like, you kind of did that with me like 3 times in a row. And that's why I kind of was like, I had to stand firm and was like, my opinion of grilling is this, or my definition of grilling is this. Like, I literally had to do that with you because you kind of went back with me because I felt like you didn't agree with me saying you were grilling her.
Well,
and that's kind of that reverse psychology of, oh, so I was not grilling her. It was like you were trying to get me to say that you weren't.
Well, no, I wasn't. What I was trying to do was make sure I understood what you were saying. I don't care. Just so you know, moving forward, and for anyone that'll listen to this and will hear me before, I don't give a rat's eye what you say. I'm not trying to convince you to say anything. If I ask you a question and I ask you a different way, what I'm trying to do is make sure I understand exactly what you're saying. Because I don't agree that I was grilling is a negative connotation. When you're grilling someone, you're being disrespectful, you're being rude, and you're putting a lot of pressure on them. If I am trying to control a conversation, I'm not doing anything to the person. I'm doing that to the conversation. So if you accuse
that
me,
was just my example. I was just telling you that when my perception of when you're what was the question? When you control it, or what was it? That you're trying to control, not control, but
what I'm trying to say is this. You accused me of grilling her, and my definition of grilling is not a positive one. I don't want the image of being a griller. And if that's how I'm seeing, I want to make sure that what someone is hearing is actually grilling. So when I ask you the same question again, I'm getting clearance for me, because you're right. I don't agree that I was grilling. I agree that I was controlling the conversation by keeping it from going long when I asked something specific and direct, but I wasn't grilling her. You said I was grilling her, and I
said it felt like.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. When you ask a question 3 times in a row after they give you an answer and you ask it slightly different, that sounds like you're trying to convince change their answer.
Once again, the moment you say it feels like or it sounds like, I almost go deaf because I can't hear past what someone feels because I can't control their feelings. And clearly other people can't control their feelings. What I'm looking at...
That's going to be a fault. That's going to be a double-edged sword on you. I understand where you're coming from and I agree with it, but I'm telling you that's how the average person is going to respond to that.
Well,
you ask a question 3 or 4 times, with slightly different. That's like a sense of reverse psychology to get them to change their answer.
Okay. And then what I want to do is not have anything to do with that person. I want a person, maybe a part of my disclaimer needs to be, I want you to stand firm on what you believe and what you, well, not even what you believe, because that's the problem. What people believe.
You say you don't want to, that's what shows it right there. You said, I don't want to deal with my ears go deaf and I'm not trying to deal with that person. That clearly shows you have your way of thinking and you're not trying to have a conversation with somebody.
Okay,
you want somebody
but that's
to agree with you.
That's not true. That's not true. I want someone
you
to.
You literally just said my ears go deaf and I'm not trying to deal with that.
And that's what I meant. And my ears go deaf to what someone feels because I don't care about your feelings when I'm trying to have a principle-based conversation. You don't hear me saying I feel, and when I do, I correct myself, or what it sounds like. I don't go by what it sounds like. And when I do feel something, I ask the question, because when you said grilling, I didn't feel good about grilling. So I ask you again, and I want to make sure that I'm clearly hearing what you're saying. I'm not grilling you. I'm just trying to make sure I am very clear with what you're saying.
Okay, so I gave you a yes or no answer, and I gave you an example.
Okay, so now, so that it doesn't sound like I'm grilling you, I'm getting clearance for me. So, if you say I was grilling her, then my question had nothing to do with her. It had to do with what I was saying about what I was trying to get. It almost doesn't matter what she says. In a sense, because she can say what she wants. All I'm trying to do is to try to stay on point. And I was trying to make a point now, and I just lost my train of thought. But I'm gonna try to get into. It's okay. I'm gonna try to get into the conversation that I had with this other person. They felt like I was controlling the person, and if there is a difference between controlling a conversation or controlling a person, it sounds sort of the same thing you just said. Is there a difference in grilling a person or grilling a conversation, or are they the same?
Grilling a person or grilling a conversation? I don't know. I would say grilling a person, because
What I'm
I
asking,
would say that
is there a difference between grilling a conversation or grilling a person?
I don't understand what grilling a conversation means.
Well, like you said, I'm trying to control. Controlling and grilling is the same thing based on what I heard.
It's like a weird question because I don't think grilling a conversation, like my if you say I'm grilling a conversation, that means you're critiquing a conversation after it happened. If you're trying to stay on the subject and you start lecturing yourself, that's grilling the person because you're addressing the source.
Okay, I appreciate that. So you were saying that I was grilling her. I wasn't grilling the conversation. That's your final answer. I was grilling her.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, and whether you like it or not, that's based on what I felt because I can't give you a finite example.
Okay, no problem. So then my fix to that is to say what I want to say shorter. I can say what I said, but just shorter. I asked a person just the other day while having this same conversation because I was trying to explain the importance for me of having yes or no answers. So I asked a person a question and I said, if I jumped off top of the Empire State Building, head first, onto the concrete with no protection, head first, do you believe I can get up and walk away? Now, I'm not going to tell you what their answer is, but I want you to tell me your answer. So I'm going to ask the same question. If I jumped head first off the top of the Empire State Building, do you believe I can get up and walk away?
No.
Your answer is no?
My answer is no.
Okay. So I ask a person that same question. And because, well, I'm not going to say why, because when they answered me, but I wasn't clear on their stance. So when I asked them, do you think a person could jump off the Empire State Building and get up and walk away? They said, they didn't answer me. They gave a response, but they didn't answer my question. I'm going to tell you what their answer was. Are you interested at all? Just say yes.
I'm very interested.
The answer was, it's possible. And then my response was, I didn't ask you if it was possible. I asked you if you believe it. And then that's when they got real high and said, wait a minute, let me get you straight. I'm a person who believes in the impossible. And, when we were kids, they say everything is possible if you only believe. And that makes sense too. That gives you hope. But when you're having a realistic conversation, you're having a principle-based conversation, and you get into that kind of stuff, you get into a problem, and that's why there's confusion, because people are in their feelings and in their beliefs as opposed to having true, realistic conversations. So would you say that the person answered my question? If I said, do you believe a person could walk away, and they say it's possible, do you think they answered my question or they gave me a response to my question?
They answered your question because it was an answer. It wasn't an acceptable response to your standards.
So you're saying they answered my question, or they answered my question?
Yeah, they answered your question. It just wasn't acceptable to you. And I mean, the reason why. I mean, that's a really tough question for people. Well, and even it was for me for a second, even though, because I'm the same way. Like, I literally went through the process. It's possible, but I'm like, no. I gotta give them a straight answer, and I'm gonna go with what's more likely not possible of happening. So I stuck with no.
Okay,
but it's human nature to really kind of go through that thought process, and a lot of people have a hard time going with the yes or no question.
Well, once again, I don't want to be that concerned about what's hard for people, because it's hard for me too. And
I got you, but I'm telling you that's like when, as a leader or when you're being a moderator, that's just something to keep in mind. And it's tough. That's the difficult part of when
that's what I'm bringing. That's why I'm doing this kind of conversation, because I want to bring awareness to people who will have a hard time, so that they can maybe not have a hard time, or maybe I can have an easier time in going that route. I think I'm doing.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I think I'm doing myself a service by disassociating myself with feelings and thoughts and belief, and trying to be as principle based as possible. Now, I have trouble with people who don't think that way, but I sleep well at night, with the decisions I make, particularly for myself and for other people, when I have principles to base them on. So if I want to be emotional and, and in my ego when I'm doing things, then I'll probably have the problems that I think the world has. So let me just finish with the conversation. The person would not give me an answer. They were bent on the fact that I was controlling, and that they were convinced that I was not going to control them and I was not going to control the conversation. So in my conversation, I was asking them quite a few yes or no questions so that I could understand better. And they totally refused on purpose to answer anything yes or no. So I was never clear on what their true stance was. So when I asked them about if they believe a person could get up from a head first fall off the top of the Empire State Building, and they said it's possible, I'm not sure on their stance. So I can't tell what kind of brain they're working with if they say it's possible. Well, if I had asked the question, tell me if this is a different question before I go on to that. If I say, do you believe that a person could live if they head first off the Empire State Building? Or here's the same question but different. Do you think it's possible that a person could live? Are those two different questions, or are they the same question?
Yeah, I think they're the same question. Do you believe, or do you think it's possible? Yeah. Because, what comes with the belief is like the sense of possibility.
Okay, so fine, good answer. So I later on asked the person, I said, would you bet on that a person could walk away? And what did you think they said?
Either they didn't answer the question or they said no.
Well, you darn tootin'. They said no, they wouldn't bet on that.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so then I asked another question. I said, since Michael Jordan you're a fan of Michael Jordan, you know how good he is. If he was 3 feet away from the basket in his prime, and he had 10 chances to make one free throw at only 3 feet away, do you believe he would make at least one of them? What would your answer be to that question?
You're darn right.
Okay, so that was their answer too. Yes, they think they would. And I said, would you bet on that? And they said, well, yeah, I would bet on that. So if I am trying to have a reasonable conversation with a person, and when I say reasonable, I mean everybody that's got a brain in their head cannot tell me that they believe it, that a person can do that. You can say it's possible based on your background, or based on your religion, or based on you just being open. But if you tell me that you actually believe that a person can take that kind of fall head first and get up and walk away, I think you're being disingenuous. Do you think so? Yes or no?
What's the definition of the word disingenuous? I'm sorry.
You bull jiving, you faking, you're not being true.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what, you're telling me about that. My immediate, thought to that person is they're just being stubborn and or something, or they don't want to admit, or I don't know, they don't want to humble themselves enough to just take the blow and be like yes or no. Like some people are just kind of stubborn.
Well, I told you this person answered no to. They didn't answer yes or no to anything.
Yeah, they're just being stubborn. They're kind of annoyed at the fact that you're not giving them any grace space. A lot of people don't like being thorough with the conversation.
Well, and that's what I had to walk away with. That this person was just not going to be reasonable, realistic, or principle based. They just wanted to be in their feelings up and down, and however they felt is what they were going to let the conversation be based on.
And that's how 85% of us are.
Well,
when you watch CNN, when people go back and forth, that's how it is.
Well, that's what listen, I may get some flack and some serious blowback, even from you, what you're saying to me about grilling, but I really want to bring attention to how we are in our feelings and how you're right. I believe it's 85% of the people are just like that. And I believe that is a major cause as to why marriages break up, That is why businesses break up. That is why people fuss and fight. And that's why people kill each other, because they're not open to being reasonable or principle based. I was saying to someone else, if in order to speak English, there's some basic things that you're going to have to know in order to do that. You're going to have to, first of all, know the ABCs, especially if you're going to read. So you can't try to speak English unless you understand how the words are formed. That's a basic requirement, and it's a principle. Some people can learn the meaning of words, and that's a different way to learn. I'm not talking about the different way. I'm talking about the principle way. If you're going to learn to read and write and speak proper English, the foundation is to learn A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so forth on, and understand long and short sounds and difference between vowels and consonants. That's how you learn. It's a principle base, and it doesn't change. If I go underneath the water at the beach and I take a deep breath while my head is on the water, chances are I'm not going to feel too comfortable breathing. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that same thing happens when it comes to communication. Do you believe that everybody wants to be understood when they're speaking?
Yeah.
Do you believe that everybody wants to understand the other person that they're speaking to? If they're communicating. No. I didn't say if they were arguing or just talking. Communication means an open line. If you're not, when you're talking, you're just talking. But if you're communicating, you're understanding. So I'm agreeing that a lot of people talk. In relationships, people talk, but they're not communicating. Communicating requires that you do things out of your comfort zone. If you're not comfortable with yes or no, and another person needs clarity, you may want to be open to giving them that for them, not for you. So it requires doing things that are principle based that may not feel good. So when you get your feelings out the way, you can have a principle based conversation, and you can probably get along and come out. And what I think happened in that conversation is, yes, I was very direct, but I had a principle based conversation, and I kept the conversation principle. If I was in my feelings, I could have said to her, girl, that ain't discrimination. That's a spa treatment. And you're right. You can go in there and you can do that. And ain't nothing wrong with that. And I would have been right based on what people expect. But from a principle base, when you discriminate, you are picking something based on, especially, the legal term of discrimination. It is based on sex or color, skin color, or gender, which is the same as sex, of course. But I pointed out to her how it's discrimination. Whether it's acceptable or not is another thing. So all I wanted to do was point out. And if you say I grilled her, if you say I manipulated her, well, okay, maybe I did, but I manipulated her with truth and facts. I didn't manipulate her. Manipulation has a negative connotation to it. When you manipulate someone, you're lying to them, you're scheming. And you just accused me of manipulating her. And if we don't have the definition of manipulating means you're conning someone. You're trying to convince someone. What I did was I presented her with truth and facts, and that's what caused her to change. So how do you accuse me of manipulating her when I presented truth and facts to her?
Well, another word for manipulate is control to a certain point. And or control. I think that's like a synonym of manipulate. She had a different opinion, and like I said, she wasn't in tune to the factual base as much. And yeah, I understand your point is to bring that to attention, but sometimes when you're trying to bring someone to attention, they don't get it. So you gotta just tell them, and if they don't get it, let them go, and hopefully they'll get it. Well, one day. When you sit there and try to get them there right there, that's a form of manipulating. Well,
when you say a form of manipulating, then
that's change. Manipulating.
Okay, so it's So manipulating means if I told you that I went to an old lady and I told her, ma'am, if you give me all your money, I'm gonna make you rich, and what I told her was not true, and I took her money and she was broke and she reported me, I could go to jail for that, right?
Yes.
Okay, but if I told her, if you give me all your money, I can double your money in 2 days. But then I presented her with truth and facts, and she gave me her money and she got what she said. I couldn't go to jail for that if I didn't do anything illegal, right?
Right.
Both times I convinced her, I controlled her to do something that I wanted her to do. One, manipulating, when you use the term manipulate, you use something, it's a negative connotation, and you accuse me of
it is a negative, but like, if you want to be principle based, you still manipulate it in both situations. Usually the law comes into place because people do things for a negative result, and that's why the law is there to stop that.
Okay.
But in both situations, you did manipulate, so you kind of let your feelings get in the way. When I gave you an answer and you have a negative connotation with it, you still manipulated her. Whether you think it's positive or negative. Because I actually, as we're talking, I looked up the synonyms for manipulate. It's control, influence, maneuver, engineer, steer, direct, guide. So you still manipulated.
Okay, so fine. Based on a definition, I'm going to go ahead and take that. You're right, and I'm going to just stand here and take that dart right between the eyes. Now, let me ask you this question. If I tell you we're on a path and we're trying to get from one place to another place, and one way has a swamp that has alligators and snakes, and the other one doesn't have alligators and snakes, and you have a map that says this is the shortcut, and I say to you, listen, we came through here 2 weeks ago, and we lost half of our people because they were swallowed by anacondas, and the alligators got them. We didn't even know what happened. They came out of nowhere. But your map clearly says this is the shortest route. And the truth is, it is the shortest route. But I will say to you, listen, don't go that way. And then you tell me, no, man, this is the shortest route. I looked it out on the scope, and this is the right way. But so we're going to go that way. But I show you the pictures. And eventually you say, I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to go this route. And half of your crew that went that way didn't make it. And you went the way I told you to go. Did I maneuver you? Did I manipulate you? Or did I prove to you that your life was at great risk?
You didn't manipulate me because you didn't change my decision.
No.
But you did.
No, I did. I said, no,
prove.
I did say you did go the right way. Your other crew went that way and they didn't make it.
Oh, okay. You proved.
So I manipulated you?
No, because you didn't cause me to make a different decision. You just proved what happened.
No. If you were going to go that route, and
if I was going, but then you caused me to change my mind.
And I showed you. First of all, you have proof that it is the shortest route, and I agree with you that yes, it is the shortest route. But I told you last month, my crew went through there, and half of my men got killed. Because you don't know when they're going to come, and you don't know they're all in the bushes and they go. And you insist that you're going to take that. But you know what I do? I come to you and I repeatedly say, hey, listen to me. You got to hear me. I know this is the shortest route, but let me just show you. You will not make it out of there. Your chances are going to be great. And I talk you into something by presenting it to you. I show you other people that has gone that way. I'm able to bring several other people to you and present to you information that says this is an extreme high risk. I present that to you and I prove it to you. I don't just blow smoke so that you can just change your mind. I give you the information that you say, oh, you're right. This is the Amazon. And it doesn't say it's the Amazon on the map. It just shows me a short way. But I show you a different map that says this is the Amazon forest where this is that. After you talk to me for a few minutes, I am able to present to you how one map shows that it doesn't say Amazon on this. And it doesn't show that it's, it doesn't show it. But these other maps and these people who created this new map, I present you information that caused you to change your mind. Now, I talked you out of a situation that was detrimental to you, but was that in a negative manner, or did I just give you enough information? You decided to listen to me enough. Everybody that didn't listen to me went that route and was killed. You decided after your mind was made up that you were not going to go that way, and you were here today to talk to me about it. The people that went that way, they never showed up. But I was able to show you some different maps and give you some different people that also provided you with enough information. Did I manipulate you, or did I show you the difference between what one map said or another map?
Yeah, you showed me. Well, manipulation. That I guess I wouldn't consider that manipulation, because I'm trying to think. There's like a difference between like persuade and manipulate. I guess I'm trying to think. So you persuade me, you didn't manipulate me in that situation.
Well, I want you to not change your thoughts, but just be considerate to what I explained to the lady, and I was clear on saying principle based. And if you look up the definition of discrimination, and if you look up the definition of preference, they're different. And when I went in there, I discriminated. And although it's acceptable and it's not considered discriminating, I was able to, because she was patient. Many people will say, I ain't got time, or as you said, they won't have time for it because they are stuck in whatever ways. But when you take the time to allow someone to show you what they're trying to say, maybe they can persuade you, and maybe that's what I did. So I'm trying to change your mind that what I did was I did the same thing I just did to you. I persuaded you that my half of my crew didn't make it. Chances are I got one arm left and paralyzed on the other side. And then I show you that, listen, don't go this route, and you don't go that route. Did I manipulate you, or did I just provide you? And I'm asking you the same thing. Were you patient enough to be convinced that what you thought in the beginning, based on looking at a different map, because I begged you and pleaded you and I grilled you, don't do that?
Yes, you did. I got you. I'm just telling you, that's what this is. I guess this is when people get frustrated and stuff. I got you. I got your point. And yes, you're right. You did persuade me, and I had the patience to sit down and listen and do that. A lot of people don't. And I guess this is your point. You're bringing this to light, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't have the patience, especially when their feelings get in the way and they get frustrated and they don't want to take the time to really listen.
And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you see that all the time in discussions. Even when you turn on CNN and Fox News and people going back and forth, that's literally the common denominator. That's
what I want to bring attention to more than anything, because when I started talking to her, she had a mindset and she was solid. I didn't try to persuade her, manipulate her to do. All I did was present it a different way for her to look at it. If she had still insisted, then based on the principle definition, I think it would be safe for me to say that she's inaccurate. I don't like using wrong, but on the definition, and just like this, you said I grilled her, and then you said I manipulated her. Can you still say that I grilled her, or I continued to be persistent and presented her with something that actually caused her to look at the principles and what saved her from being ignorant? Because at first she was ignorant and she had a thought that was in her feelings. I prevented her moving forward from being ignorant, and I prevented you from having your arm or being swallowed whole by man-eating alligators. So I feel good that you were patient with me, and I had the ability to, if I use the word persuade, I don't even like using that word because it has a negative connotation. I was able to present enough information, and you were patient enough to listen to where you are able to now see from a different side of what I'm doing. And if we understand, first of all, what a principle is, then we can understand how to better look at situations. And my head sometimes explodes sometimes. And when I'm by myself, I'll look at situations, and it just kind of, bothers me that I don't get the opportunity to express myself because people are impatient And
But I'm gonna tell you exactly why. 'Cause, I mean, I guess because when you do express yourself, you're really long-winded with it. So I'm just telling you, like, my advice to you is to find a way to narrow that down. Paraphrase what your point. Because even now, like, I'm listening to you, and I completely agree with you. But your point is really long, and some people just don't. I mean, their attention span runs thin. It's just like human nature. Like, knowing myself, I kind of lose interest in the conversation when someone's talking longer.
And I'm okay when people do that. Those are the people that I really do want to let go, and I can feel that. I appreciate you out of respect listening to me, but when
you got to be when you're trying to lead someone, you need to be aware of different people's mindsets. People don't operate the same way as you, and I challenge you to have patience with that. You not just wait, just like you want to have people have patience with you expressing yourself. I challenge you to have patience with how other people think and how other people's minds work. And I'm telling you, and this is my advice, and part of my job is to give advice all the time. My advice to you is to paraphrase your point, because a lot of people have that issue, and I know a lot of people that know you that says the same thing. It's a common denominator, and it happens a lot. And I've known you my whole life, and it happens. And I'm just telling you that's what it is. And I learned this way because I grew up seeing that. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but that's my advice to you.
I will take that advice, and I'm going to just give you, in closing, not to try to jump on top of that, but you know what? It took me a long time to be able to play the saxophone, but some of the things that took me a long time to do are second nature to me. And as much as I want to take that advice, and I'm going to do my best to take it, I feel like it would be going backwards by, but you know what? I think,
I'm joking.
Say it again.
I said I was messing with you because you said I feel like. I got you. I'm listening.
Oh yeah, you're right. And anytime I say I feel like, please just hit the buzzer. Just tase me if I ever say I feel like. My point now is, I feel that I would be going back, but you know what? It's worth it. If sometimes you have to go along to get along, and although I don't want to do it, I'm gonna take that into consideration and try not to be so removed. But I don't want to go back to that place to where my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, and my beliefs are more dominant than truth and reality. I don't know how to do that again.
I got you. I mean, you talked about the saxophone and that's all a personal thing. I'm just telling you, when you're working with other people, that's something to keep in mind of.
Well,
you gotta have to change your personal blueprint when you're working with other people.
All right.
That's just my take on that.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to begin to do that, but I guess now that it's in the air, sometimes when you put something into the universe and you're open to it, it comes to you. So I will take that under advisement, and I'll be okay. I'll try to learn how to be a little more considerate of other people's, as my other friend said, communication styles.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I always like to talk about time. We're right on time. We're an hour in right now.
Okay, that's good.
All right. So I'm gonna let this go, and I probably will make this to the website. I don't know if anybody's gonna listen or if they will care, if anybody will get anything out of it, but I really hope they do. Again, my reason for doing this is because I'm not comfortable right now with my ability to communicate with people, and I do want to get along with people. My general attitude should be, I just don't care, and I'm gonna do me, but that's not how I feel in my heart. I do want to be a better communicator. I do want to implement some of my newfound way of being, and that's trying to be more principled and realistic as opposed to emotional. But I guess I have to find a balance, and that's going to be my quest to find out how the best way to get to that balance. So thank you for your input. It was helpful to me, and I hope this conversation will help somebody else, and that's where I'll leave it.
All right. Good luck with that.